Thank you so much. So let me start from the as Madam told. Basically, my uh, main area of interest is uh, induction motor control. Why I have chosen this? Because this interest grows from my college life. In the power electronics, in the field of power electronics and motor control, one of the famous world eminent person is Dr. Bimal Kumar Bose. So during my college days, I he was also the alumni from that same college where I studied. So he used to come, and I have observed that all the branches of engineering is involved in that in motor control. Means whenever you are designing a converter, it's you can take first low voltage till 600 volt or 650 volt. So there, microcontroller, the communication, optical communication. Then when you are firing the IGBT or semiconductor switch, there will be some conduction and switching losses that is to be evacuated. So to evacuate that, you have to design the heat sink. Then what kind of cooling is required? If the natural cooling is not sufficient to evacuate the heat, then you have to introduce the force cooling. So these are the things. These are multidisciplinary aspects are involved in motor control. When you are going to inner construction of the motor, the rotor, these are all this high level, high precision mechanical engineerings are involved. So that's why I have chosen this as a multidisciplinary learning, and I hope, in my opinion, this motor control is such a subject which is never ending. Induction motor control, basically. So let us first understand why we should do that induction motor control and what kind of control. So, in when the process and power industries developed in the world, so that time automation and the speed control of prime mover is a very important concern, because a prime mover will be rotating some driven equipment, maybe centrifugal pump, which will be controlling the flow, some fan or some other thing, so on, so on, where the speed control is very important. Now, you can take the combustion engines. You can take an example of our bike or car. Let us take an example, our bike. Okay. So when the roads are very smooth, when we are going through ECR, so or OMR, the road is very smooth, but the torque requirement is very high, low. So there we can ride our bike in fifth gear. But suddenly we are entering some bumpy road, bad road, where the torque requirement is high. We cannot ride the bike in fifth gear. It will stall. The machine, the engine will stall. It will be incapable to deliver that torque. So from this example, what we understood, that in mechanical prime mover like combustion engines and all, the torque and RPMs are inversely proportional. If you need higher, if you want to, if your speed is low, sorry, if your speed is high, that means your torque requirement is low. But when the to elevate the torque, when the torque requirement is high, definitely you have to reduce the RPM to do so. Okay, in combustion engines. But in electrical machine, in electrical prime mover, there is a unique advantage where we can control the torque and the RPM in an isolated manner. You can take an example of separately excited DC machine where the armature control and the field control are are electrically isolated. So there, if you control the armature current, your torque can be changed. In the same time, if you are keeping the flux voltage constant, your RPM may not be changing, but your torque will be changed, and vice versa. So here in electrical machine, the torque and the RPM control can be achieved in an isolated manner. So if you see the field of speed control till uh, early 90s and early 80s, the DC, the separately excited DC motors were dominating the field of speed control because it is very easy. You make a converter at the armature side and make a converter at the field side, uh, which will control the flux, the field, and the armature current in an isolated manner, and you can achieve the decoupled control of torque and RPM. But there is some disadvantage in the DC machines because it needs brush. So in high power machine, it can create some flash or spark. Okay, because it's a mechanical sliding contact. So it's cannot operate in hazardous area like refinery, nuclear plant, all those chemical industries. There we cannot use. It needs a special design to use that separately excited DC machine in such hazardous places. And moreover, it's not maintenance free. Cost is not slightly, cost is more. So to overcome these things, when in the market, the induction motor evolved, so it's very robust in design, simple in construction, more or less it is maintenance free, and it can, foremost, it can operate in hazardous environment. Due to this reason, the concept of speed control, people are rushed over on induction machine, how to achieve that decoupled control there. But it is not so easy, likely to a separately excited DC machine. You can take an example. When our ceiling fan is rotating or our stand fan is rotating, basically the energy from the electrical domain, it is going to mechanical domain. The electrical domain, the energy in terms of voltage and current, it is going to mechanical domain, which is rotating the fan and producing some RPM and the torque. Okay, this is simple thing. Now 230 volt voltage is more or less constant. Mainly current is going. We are changing the current through regulator, and the speed is changing. So basically, I can infer, I can write down one statement that the input current is converted to from the electrical domain. The input current is getting converted to RPM and torque. For a certain instant, it's drawing 3 ampere of current. Now, if I ask from that 3 ampere, how much is going for torque production and how much is going for RPM flux production? Is it possible to isolate? The answer is simply no, because if it was a separately excited DC machine, for the fan blade, say connected with a separately excited DC machine. Now by changing the flux side, I can control the speed somewhere. And by changing this, I can control the torque also. But in induction machine, it is not possible Because the rotor is getting induced, the rotor is getting magnetized from the stator field, and it is lagging. The speed, the resultant flux of the stator is rotating in the stator space. It is the rotor is not able to catch that speed exactly. It is slightly lagging. That is called sleep. Okay, that's why it is called asynchronous. The speed which the stator flux is rotating, that is called the synchronous speed. From that, rotor is getting magnetized. There will be some delay. Due to that, it is not exactly catch that. But if it is a permanent magnet, already rotor is magnetized. No need to do anything. It is perfectly locked with the stator field, which is called synchronous machine. Anyway, those are the different kind of construction of the electrical machine. But today we will concentrate only on asynchronous machine. So what I was telling, that it is very difficult to decouple it. The current which is producing flux and which is producing torque. That means we want to analyze an induction machine, a synchronous induction machine, analogous to a separately excited DC machine. So if you're able to do that, then I can operate the asynchronous induction machine also as a separately excited DC machine, which is called vector control of induction machine. So for what we have discussed, the thing is, why I told this story, because we need some specialized application like paper mill. If you have seen any paper mill, I have seen. I went that on paper factory here. What is that on local newspaper factory? When the pulp, the papers are coming out, if the dynamic response, if the torque and the RPM dynamic response is poor, what I am meaning to tell, if the dynamic response is poor, that means, say now the machine is rotating at the RPM of 500. I am suddenly changing it to, I am giving from the steady state, I am giving a step response as excitation of 600. So if to achieve that speed, if there is an undershoot and overshoot, and it is not synchronized with the torque requirement, what will happen? Naturally, you understand that it is try to follow, but there will be some transient behavior. If the transient is more, your dynamic response is poor, immediately the paper it tear out and the entire pulp will go waste. So in such case, your dynamic response of the prime mover should be very, very accurate. Okay, there should not be undershoot, there should not be any overshoot. It is perfectly nearly sharp increase. The rate I have changing the excitation, the output response of the machine nearly will follow the same path. That means the dynamic response of the system is very good. So we have to make such thing. It's even though the construction of the machine is quite easy, but the task of a control engineer is become much more difficult. So today, what we will understand, what we will learn, how to what is the basic concept of the vector control, how it is to be implemented, and there is some from the classical concept, when we are going in broad aspect to improve all the dynamic response of the machine, that time we need to do some uh, model free analysis. Always that analytical concept, classical analytical concept may not work, because some things are dynamic in nature, random in nature. So all those cases, we need to have dynamic learning, dynamic learning of the system parameters, and it is to be updated dynamically to compensate the change of some passive parameter of the machine to maintain the desired dynamic response of the prime mover. So first, we will, where we will go, we will just understand the, as I told, the induction machine, the vector control of induction machine is nothing but to implement a separately excited DC machine analogy to an induction machine. So now, you know, this is the very simple, very simplified equivalent circuit of a separately excited DC machine. So this side your armature side, and this is your field side. And you know, this angle, the construction is such that the armature flux and the field flux, they're aparted by 90-degree angle. So now cos 90 is 0. So there is no influence of armature flux on field flux, and there is no influence of field flux on armature flux. This is a decoupled nature. And if you see the governing equation, the torque basically, it's a product of field and the armature current. And the back EMF, you see, it is irrespective of armature current. It's a very interesting thing. By the virtue of its construction, the back EMF of the machine is independent of armature current. And the torque of the machine is independent of omega. There is no omega. And there is no armature current. This behavior make a separately excited DC machine to operate in a decoupled manner. I'm going very slowly because you should, most of the student and I have seen they are thinking that vector control is a very big thing. Yes, it is slightly difficult, not difficult I can tell, but your conception is, it is to be, your conception should be very, very clear. It's not a very big thing, what I feel. So there is some transformation. I am not, hope you have already studied that Rajana, uh, uh, Rajan, I'm in a seminar. Okay, I after 11:30 I will talk to you. So this is a simple phasor diagram. What I was telling that Park and Clark transform. Hope all you know that it's not a big thing. I will explain here very quickly. So you know this is your R phase, this is your Y phase, and this is your B phase. Now from the three phase, you want to convert to two phase. So this angle is 90 degree. So this is your alpha axis, this is your beta axis. This is the stationary axis. Okay. So the alpha axis is reference axis, which is just lying on the A phase or R phase. This is B phase, this is C phase. Now it is aparted by 120 degree. So if I take a current, so I alpha is equal to IA cos 0 plus IB cos 120 plus IC cos 240. So this is the beta axis. So your I beta is equal to similarly IA sin 0, IB sin 120 and IC sin 240. This is very simple. Now from there, if any axis it is rotating, so it is taking this, consider it is a D and this is Q. This is Q. This angle is 90. Entire axis is rotating. Rotor. Then, and this is the instantaneous angle. You see here I have mentioned. This is the instantaneous angle, which is always, as I told initially, the rotor is always lagged from the stator. So basically that is called the slip. So if in case of a synchronous machine, this line, it is perfectly here. Very small angle, delta, that is called the load angle. It will be not this much. So this is a very simple phasor vector diagram. Here splitted all the stator and the rotor current. It is splitted here. Here I have used the notation SD. What is SD? Stator D axis. This is the direct axis. SQ. Stator quadrature axis. So this is the quadrature axis. This is the quadrature axis Q. RQ means rotor quadrature axis. RD is the rotor direct axis. Okay. So slightly I am going to the governing equation. Okay. So this is the stator, this is the stator direct axis governing equation. So simple, it is very simple if you see the equivalent circuit. So this part is the resistive part. It's a KVL, simple Kirchhoff's voltage law. And there is a rate of change of stator direct axis flux with respect to time, which is producing voltage, and omega, this is the synchronous speed as it is rotating. So this is coming from the quadrature part of the stator, but it is opposing in nature. So that's why VSD is this one. So from here, we can tell the voltage, the rotational voltage, which is getting produced from this equation. It is only this, because omega is involved. So I given the name, the rotational voltage developed in the stator direct axis is this one. Similarly, in quadrature axis, the equation is this, but it's not opposing. If you see that vector diagram or equivalent circuit, you will understand that. You can refer any standard book like B.L. Thereja, A.K. Sahani, any book you can see. It will be very clear. This equation is a Kirchhoff's voltage law in a loop, and the signs are based on the polarity. You can very easily understand. So in quadrature axis, similarly, the rotational voltage is this one. So this is your rotational voltage. Now the rotational power, power is equal to voltage into current. So total power, rotational power, that means the power is involved for the rotation. This one. Stator direct axis rotational voltage into stator direct axis current and the quadrature part. Okay. Now you see, here I am putting the value of the I am expanding it. Already we know, we have from the previous equation, we know VSD rotational is equal to omega s into psi sq. Similarly, same thing I have put here. And this psi SD, that means the flux, the stator direct axis flux, which is very simple. LSS into ISD. What is LSS? LSS is the total inductance. It is leakage plus mutual. Okay. And mutual part is coming from the rotor side. So that's why IRD. Similarly, psi SQ, that means the stator quadrature axis flux, is equal to total inductance, stator inductance into ISQ plus mutual part is coming from the rotor quadrature axis. Now, if you substitute this psi SD and psi SQ in this equation, it is coming something like this. Something it will be cancelled out. Okay. So here you see the two terms are there. One is IRD and another is IRQ. Now it is very difficult because the rotor is rotating. So there is no measurement at the rotor side. So to implement physically, practically, you have to eliminate that. There I can't put any measurement. I don't have any access. Direct access I don't have. I have to eliminate it. So I'm in the next, what we will do, we will try to substitute it. So here, similarly, the rotor flux, direct axis flux is equal to total rotor inductance, which is also leakage plus mutual into direct axis, rotor direct axis current plus mutual into stator direct axis, which is induced from the stator side. So as I told, I want to replace the IRD. So simply it is coming like this. And similarly, I want to replace the IRQ also. So it is coming like this. Now, in the previous equation, in place of IRD, I am putting this. And in place of IRQ, I am putting this. Now, I am simplifying it. After simplifying, it is coming like this. So the total rotational power is equal to Lm into omega s by LRR into psi RD into ISQ minus psi RQ into IST. Now we know power is basically what? Power is basically torque into RPM. Torque into RPM. That is the mechanical RPM. Okay. So in order to get the mechanical speed, the synchronous speed will be divided by P by 2. Okay. Because it's you know, this very simple formula, simple conception. So synchronous speed, when it is going to the mechanical side, rotor side, you have to divide by simply pole by 2. So that's why in place of this, I am putting this and divided by pole by 2. Now, if you this side, it is cancelled, and it is coming like this. This is the torque equation. It is coming like this. So this is cancelled. So this is coming like this. But you remember, this 3-phase, it is converted to 2-phase, and we are doing all the calculation so far. Now, if we want to do the power balance, then we need to multiply these things by 3 by 2. So for an induction machine, asynchronous 3-phase induction machine, the torque equation is like this. Exact torque equation is 3 by 2 into P by 2 into Lm by Lr into psi RD into ISQ minus psi RQ into IST. So now, you know, all these things are passive parameter, which I can take as a constant. Now, what I told initially, to implement the vector control, you have to make one analogy of separately excited DC machine, which can be applicable to induction machine. So I am trying to convert all the governing equation of an induction machine, which can be identical, which having some identity with the governing equation of separately excited DC machine. You can remember the torque equation of a separately excited DC machine is some constant into some flux into armature current. Now, this entire part is a constant, this is a flux, and this is the armature current. Now, if I make the psi RQ 0 by somehow, then I will get the equivalent torque analogy of an induction machine, same as separately excited DC machine. So basically, I am trying to do that. If what I'll, because you're from your department, if some students they are attending the seminar, I would like to request at least 1 or 2 people, you will implement it. I will help you later on. Some student from regularly they are coming. A lot of student, I forgot their name. One I can remember one boy. His name is Aditya. He's my one of the, I can tell, one of the bright flame. He implemented in my lab that vector control. with the test inverter. So at least I will expect one or two student, if students are attending the seminar, they can implement it. It's a very interesting thing. So what I was telling, now I have to make the psi RQ to 0. I have to make the psi RQ to 0. Now, if you say this is the direct axis and this is the quadrature axis, and your rotor flux is somewhere here, psi r, and this is your theta. It is instantaneous. The rotor angle, it is rotating. Now, this is your psi RQ, and this is your psi RD. Sorry, this is your psi RQ, and this is your psi RD. Now, if I bring that, somehow I reduce the angle. Now the psi R is coming here. So now psi RQ is reduced. Further, I am bringing here psi RQ again reduced. And if I align the psi RQ with D axis, sorry, psi R, if I align perfectly psi R with the D axis, then my psi RQ is 0. And the total flux is nothing but the direct axis flux. So to make the torque analogy, I need psi RQ to be 0. As I told in the earlier equation here, you see, here I need this is to be made 0. So this is to be made, if I need to make it 0, what is to be done? I have to align the rotor flux with the D axis. Now I am concluding after this discussion, this maybe 45 minutes of discussion. Now I am concluding few things. One is to implement the vector control on induction machine, I need to create an analogy of separately excited DC machine. To do so, first I am taking the torque equation. In separately excited DC machine, the torque equation basically is the product of flux and armature current. But we obtained the torque equation in two phase, in two axes. Why two axis? I will tell you, because three axis control, it will be difficult physically. So that's why we are converting to two axis. That is the summation of two component, two flux. So if I want to eliminate, if I will to eliminate one flux, then it will be identical to the torque equation of a separately excited DC machine. That means in the induction machine, the quadrature axis flux I need to minimize it to 0, which is nothing but to align the instantaneous rotor flux with the direct axis of synchronous rotating reference frame. So now the main technical statement behind the vector control or field oriented control of induction machine is to align instantaneous rotor flux with the direct axis of synchronous rotating reference frame. Again, I am repeating, to implement the vector control for an asynchronous induction machine, the things which is to be done, the control which is to be implemented is nothing but to align the instantaneous rotor flux with the direct axis of synchronous axis, direct axis of synchronous rotating reference frame. Now I'm coming slightly to the implementation. I'll not go in depth of that because today our target is to apply of machine learning. So that I will concentrate. So this is your direct axis. So here I have to set the reference flux, which is given by the machine manufacturer, and this ISD, which will be coming from another block, another computational block where we are taking the three-phase current and converting to two-phase current. As I told earlier, the Park and Clark transform. So from there, the ISD, it is getting compared and error signal is generating, which is going through a compensator, and it is producing the direct axis voltage of the stator. So the direct axis loop of the of this control is very easy, and naturally it will be very stable. Flux loop of vector control is more or less very stable because it is very simple. But this compensator, how to tune that compensator, that is another never-ending topic. One day I will tell you some simple technique how to tune that, because the entire in this control there will be total three compensator PI regulator. Why PI? Because it's a second, it's a first order system. PID is second order. So it will unnecessarily, the higher order effect will come to increase the transient. So, and PI regulator implementation also, it is much more easier. So that's why most of the industry, they will use PI, where the fast response are, where the, not fast, where the robust response, dynamic response are required. Okay. So now I am coming to that, because as I told, the rotor is rotating by its mechanical, maintaining the mechanical speed. But where is the rotor flux? That position identification is very, very important, because you remember in the Clark and Park transform, they need a theta. That theta is basically the instantaneous angle, of the rotor flux. That is very, very important. It is to be needed. Otherwise, the entire control is become unstable. So now this is the rotor direct axis voltage equation as the stator. So this is the due to resistance, and this is the change of flux. And this part, omega s minus omega r, why I have told, because this is the relative speed. And that due to that relative speed only, the flux will got cut and produce voltage. So that's why it is given synchronous speed minus the rotor mechanical speed. But you know, in induction machine, the rotors are short circuited at the both end by short circuit rings. So that's why rotor bars are shorted. If it is shorted, so this voltage will be 0, left hand side. And for vector control, what we did? This made 0 because it is to be aligned. So for what I have told. So this equation converted to this equation. Now this rotor direct axis flux, because there is no quadrature axis flux. So basically that is coming now, no quadrature. When I am implementing the vector control, there will be no quadrature. Entire flux is the total flux, which is getting by the magnetization current. So that's why I am writing, and it is coming from the mutual part, because there is no electrical connection. There is a air gap. So that's why I'm writing mutual into magnetizing current. We know psi RD already, we know the equation, what is psi RD. And now we got, after vector control, when you are implementing, it is this one. And from there, as I told, the IRD, the rotor side implementation, rotor side measurement is not available. So I am replacing that. So in place of, sorry, this will be IRD, it is not L. This IRD, it is replaced by this value. Now the differential equation, finally it is turned like this. Because you see this LM cancelled, and this tau r is nothing but the 1 by tau r, that is basically inverse rotor time constant. And for the machine learning, for the through the network, through the neural network or any other deep learning method, we need to measure the inverse rotor time constant instantaneously. That's why in the modern electrical drive, this concept is very important. Because as I told, rotor resistance, there is no direct measurement. It is rotating. It is very difficult. So for the technology is not available. And if you want to implement also, there will be a lot of difficulties. So through the neural network or other deep learning method, you need to, because when the for high power machine, when the current is more, it is producing heat. So this resistance is getting increased, and the inverse rotor time constant value is changing time to time based on the process condition, how much load it is needed, all these things. So for this, we need the machine learning. Okay. So finally, this is the equation. Okay. Now, if I go to the Laplace domain, see, if I go to the Laplace domain, it is like this. Now, in final value theorem, steady state, if you do that, so this part will go, this part 1 by tau r, it is cancelled, and IMR is IST. IMR is equal to IST. So I can tell at steady state, the magnetizing current is nothing but the stator direct axis current. It's very simple. Now coming to the quadrature loop. In the quadrature loop, it is not simple like the direct axis loop. This is my reference speed, at what speed I need to rotate the machine. And this is coming from the feedback. The motor shaft is connected with the shaft incremental encoder, which is giving the feedback. This error signal is going to one PI regulator, which is producing the torque reference. If you see the torque equation, the ISQ, the quadrature, stator quadrature axis component, it is analogous to armature current. This will be compared again with the quadrature axis actual current, which is, we are taking the feedback from the motor 3-phase, and it is converting to 2-axis. So that is to be compared, and finally it will go again through a regulator and producing the quadrature axis voltage, stator voltage. Okay. Now, similar way as we have done in direct axis, again this quadrature axis voltage is 0, and this is already for vector control, we made it 0. So now your omega slip is like this. Okay. Now here one component is the psi RQ that I need to replace. So we know psi RQ is this, but for vector control we made it 0. So my IRQ is nothing but this. So this value I will replace here. If I replace this, and we know what is psi RD already, it is LRR into magnetizing current. Now, finally, your omega slip, that means your slip frequency, is 1 by tau r into ISQ by IST. Because at steady state, the magnetizing current is nothing but the stator directed axis component. Already we have learned it. So now the omega slip is like this. So what is omega slip? Synchronous minus actual. So omega synchronous minus omega r. Now we are getting already encoder feedback. So if you add it, so this is cancelled, only omega s. Omega is basically what? D theta s by dt. Now if I integrate, I'll get the theta. That is the instantaneous rotor flux position. So that theta is needed where? To convert the three-phase current to two-phase current. And wherever, again, when you are generating the modulating signal for the PWM in each phase, basically in the quadrature and the direct axis loop, we are getting the voltage, 2-axis voltage. Now it is to be converted to three-axis voltage, where we need the theta, instantaneous position. So this theta will be used there. So now you understood what is how the control, how it is difficult. Now this is the model. Let us understand. So as I told, through this block, this is your machine. So there is sensor, current sensor. That 3 current sensor is coming, and this is a mathematical block which is converting the 3-phase current to 2-phase, where you need the theta. The theta how is estimated? Just now I have shown you. And this loop is the direct axis loop, as I told. This is the set flux, which is first I told, which is compared with that ID, which is coming from this block, compared, and it is generating the stator direct axis voltage. And just now I have discussed the quadrature axis. So this is your RPM reference, which is getting feedback from the encoder. You see, encoder is connected here. It is getting compared. It is generating the torque. It is generating the torque component, torque reference, which is again compared with IQ and producing the stator quadrature axis voltage. Now the theta estimation. What I told, what is the theta? Theta, what is omega slip? Omega slip is 1 by tau r into ISQ by ISD. So you see, I have taken the ISQ and this is the ISD. This value is inverse rotor time constant. After that, I am adding the RPM with that. This K is P by 2 because it is all our measurement as stator side. We are measurement taking at rotor side. So rotor to stator, it should be multiplied by pole by 2. That's why I multiplied. And after that, it is coming here. What is coming? Here it is omega s. Now if you integrate, you will get theta. That theta I am giving here and here. So after that, it is getting, this is the modulating signal for R phase, modulating signal for Y phase, modulating signal for B phase. Now it is compared with the switching frequency. This is a ramp, this is a short ramp pulse, and producing the PWM. This PWM, I am going, this is the A phase. I am giving the top switch, and complemented pulse, it is giving to the bottom switch. My control is over. Here, this is the very simple concept of implementation of vector control and to understand its dynamics. Okay, now the question is how to tune this PI having a KP and KI, this also having a KP and KI, and this also having a KP and KI. How to obtain that? Okay, this is a very critical task, because without knowing the system transfer function, If you don't know where is my pole and where is my zero, how you will introduce the compensator? This is a very interesting thing, but that thing I am not going right now because time is less. So you can for that regulator tuning, I'll tell just few lines about that. You can convert the higher order transfer function to first order system, and you consider the systems are critically damped. I'll take this one. You see, for critically damped, this is that, where the zeta is 1. No overshoot, moderate response, moderate time response. It is not faster nor slower. Things are stable. So you can consider the zeta is equal to 1. Considering that one, you can convert the all the 3 loop transfer function to a first order function. Then as you are introducing PI regulator, so it will be second order. So second order means s square plus 2 xi omega n into s plus omega n square. So this is the setup. Whatever the model I have shown, this is the setup in my lab where I have made this one. It's a 3-level inverter. And after comparing this, these are the value for the speed controller. If you see the quadrature axis outer loop, so this is the value, and this is the direct axis loop, flux loop, and this is the inner loop of the quadrature axis. One thumb rule I have considered that the fastest loop in this 3 regulator, the fastest loop is the torque loop, which having a natural frequency of 100 Hertz. These all are hypothetical, and it is I have tuned medium voltage drive till 12 megawatt. So far I have tuned nearly 20 to 30 drives in the country. So everywhere I use this and perfectly it is getting tuned. Okay. And you can prove that also, why this natural frequency is like that. It is lying more or less same. And if your controller design, if the disturbance, when you are designing your PI regulator, if the disturbance rejection capability is made slightly, it is improved, then these are slight mismatch from the practical and the analytical parameter, value of the parameter, it will be compensated. So the fastest loop in the vector control is the torque loop, which having a natural frequency of 100 Hertz. Then is the flux loop, which is of 10 Hertz. And we know the speed loop is very slow. It's a most sluggish loop because it's it will basically in rotating machine, it will generate the mechanical side flow, fan, air flow. If you suddenly change the RPM, flow is not going to change that much abruptly. So these are the physical consideration to tune the things. Next ones, when I will come to you, that time I will explain physically how to implement it, PI regulator. And there is a concept of is a artificial intelligence. This I can tell the fuzzy system, fuzzy logic is also one kind of fair replacement of intelligent system. Okay, so instead of the classical controller, if you design a fuzzy controller, you will get a better response. You see this left side, this is the classical controller and this is the fuzzy controller. Okay. So you see that dynamic response, this area, the settling is much more better than this one. Okay. So sometime the expert system can be replaced by fuzzy system. What I mean to say. So this is all about the vector control. Now I will explain where is the application of the artificial intelligence in frequency converter for the induction machine. So now, so far what we have understood that in control, you see in the theta estimation, the entire dynamics of the control or the entire behavior of the control will be depending on the instantaneous rotor flux, because every time it is predicting and making to 0, quadrature making to 0, then it is rotating here, again it is making. So this is my right hand is the direct axis and this is my left hand is the rotor flux. So when the direct axis position is here, it is making 0, then it is rotating here, flux is here, again making 0. So it is going like that. So if I not able to predict the instantaneous rotor position, it will be very difficult. But I don't have direct measurement. I don't have any equipment fixed inside the rotor. So what we are doing? We are getting the quadrature axis current and the direct axis current, dividing, multiplied with the inverse rotor time constant. But the inverse rotor time constant is a function of resistance. We can consider that the inductance is unchanged as a fair consideration. But the rotor for high power machine, when current is high, the temperature is getting raised and the resistance is getting changed, which is dynamically changing the inverse rotor time constant. But if you set it as a fixed parameter, your regulator design, your compensator design should be, you should be very cautious that it can able to take that change, and in spite of those change also, the pole zero position should be such a place that the system, overall system is to be is remained stable. So to overcome this, let us understand the technique how to estimate, how to predict the inverse rotor time constant dynamically. As you understand, it's a very complex system, higher order system. It is very difficult to very difficult to isolate the transfer functions. It is highly nonlinear in behavior. Rather than doing all the analytics, let us get trained how to get it. You know, when you can think in your childhood, when your mother taught you A, B, C, D, simply she told this is one line, and if you do, it is called A. Why you have to do what, that time you don't know. That means you don't know the dynamics of that. Your mother trained you. If you take a pen and put like this, it will be A. Your brain trained. If I have to write A, I have to do this. Once your brain is get trained, so when you need to write that A, your hypothalamus is actuated by that trained network, trained memory which is stored. It is instructing the particular location of your hypothalamus, which is in turn giving the instruction to the actuator, which is your hand, to move like this. So this is basically concept of neural network. Implementation of our neuron function electronically or electrically. Even though a lot of things are involved in the neural network, still something are not known. We know the construction of the neuron and how it is connected, dendron and axon. In between there is the neurofluid, the neurotransmitter fluid, which is basically helping to fire the consecutive neurons. So how the electrical signal is getting transmitted and what is the behavior, what is the actual biological behavior of that neurofluid transmitter, it is not clearly known today. People are doing research on that. So actually this project, these things, some of my students already, that Madhu, Sudhi and 2-3 students from Jadavpur University, they are working. So same thing I am explaining. So once that is over, so it will be with more explanation, it will be explained. So what we have done basically, what we are trying to do, we are trying to train one neural network. So basically this is the structure of a neural network. There will be an input layer, some hidden layer, output layer, and the output. Basically, first you consider there is a set of input vector, there is a set of output vector or one output. So we are considering the initial one matrix, one characteristics matrix, which is producing the output. Now keep on recursively, we are changing it. What is the value of this matrix to get the best output? Once it is obtained, then I got trained. You see, when childhood we writing A, it was not that much good and fair. Slowly, when repeatedly you are doing, it has become perfect, like a print. It will come slowly. So you are repeatedly, how much you are getting trained, your response will be that much better. So how much it is coming, we are repeatedly, recursively rotating it to get the perfectness. So this is the basic structure. I'm not going in details how the neural network works because that is another subject. I am trying to explain you the application of that. And here, a lot of algorithms are used to train the network. So normally I am, so far whatever the work done, I have done through that Levenberg-Marquardt algorithm. MATLAB also implemented that same. So you can, if you want to know that, you can read that in any standard book. Now I will show you few just MATLAB syntax. My computer may be very slow. So let us take one variable x1, which is going 0 to 200. I am taking one more x2, which is also going varying 0 to 200. Very simply. Now I am say there is one equation which is x1 square plus 3x2. This equation I don't know. So let us, for a system, these two are the input and y is the output. So from the time domain data, time domain measurement, I got x1, x2 and y. Now I have to estimate this. It's a nonlinear in behavior. It's a nonlinear equation. It's a quadratic equation. quadratic polynomials. Now, by analytical method, it will be quite difficult. Now, I'll try to apply the neural network. Just I am showing the syntax of that, so that you can do it by your own. And one thing I am telling you, I used to tell everybody, to my every students, that your technical knowledge should not be limited on in your paper, books and all. In my opinion, whatever we have learned, if we are not able to implement it for the common cause, for the improvement of the society, for the mankind, then there is no use. We may know so many things. Try to implement it. Try to implement it. Try to implement the things which you have learned. I always used to do that. Please try to do that. I know some of your seniors, some of the students, previous students of SSN college, now they started their own. They become entrepreneur. Very young age, they are influenced by that. And one more thing is very true. Rather than after completing the degree, rather than becoming a job seeker, all the people become a job seeker. This cannot this the employment, the need of employment cannot be catered if your mindset is like this. Rather than do so, you have to think that to become entrepreneur, it will much more feasible for the country with high population volume. Try to implement it. It will give mental satisfaction. After doing electrical engineering, electronics, all these things, if you are not able to give a output of a converter, it's very pathetic. Even though if you have thousands of papers, that is, I don't think this that much worthy. So try to implement always. It will bridge between the academics and the your physical output. Okay. So to do that, just there is a command called nn start. If you so this is the GUI, it will open. Okay. Now I am setting one input, which is x1. Everything I am representing as vector. Now I am this is it's a fitting app. So your input is x and your output is y. Yeah, it is a column matrix. You can change it. So first it is taking 141 based on it is automatically taking the length of the vector, and from there it is deciding. You can change it always for the validation, how many things you want. You can change it. Okay. So first it will train the network. That means by dynamically it will change the value of each element of the matrix. Then it will test it, how much closer it is coming. Then number of neurons. If the number of neurons are more, that means your brain is more powerful. So here it may take time. So that's why I'm taking 10 neurons. How much you will increase, it will give that much better result. Now it is creating the network, and there are the algorithm. This is the Bayesian algorithm. This is the conjugate gradient, but I will use this. And now I am training the network. Now my network is ready. Now I am repeatedly telling, like my mother is telling me to write A 100 times. I'm writing, and storing that movement. I'm capturing it, the action of my hand. in my brain. That work I am doing. You see, it is getting trained. I am in home, okay. Around 11:45 I will come to lab. You see, now it is getting trained. It got trained. The network is trained. Okay, you see, now I got the network trained. So now if you given the name as net, so now if the value is 2, if the value is 2, what should come? 2 4 আর 2 6, 10. It should come 10. You see, it is coming like this, 10.001. That is the error. So this is the simple, without understanding much more detail on the neural network. It's a part of learning, machine learning. Later on, if people are interested, I'll be happy to do all these things. Your TensorFlow, Python, how to implement all these things. That customized code also I will explain. That is a very good topic, and hope for next 30 years, 30 to 50 years, the entire industry will be dependent on that machine learning only. So this is the thing why I told to just give a overview. This is the model. This is the model which is used to predict the uh, predict the rotor flux. This is the rotor flux and the position theta. This is the model used. How this model came? If you see the governing equation, and from there you can easily make this block. So this, where it is coming in the vector control, this is coming from the that 3-phase to 2-phase transformation, the theta. Where you will get the theta, this theta will go to that block. So you will take 3-axis current. I'll show you the model also. So from the 3-axis current, it is converting this omega r, it is coming from the encoder, and these are the passive parameter. And this is the simple equation, that differential equation. This is star means integration. Okay. This is the very, very simple thing. So here, these 3 terms is adding, and basically this is equal to d psi rq by dt. You are integrating and you are getting psi rq. And this is the model. Whatever the things it is here, I have shown that things is in PSIM, it is modeled like this. It is some same thing. It is getting modeled. Here, it is line by line. It is, you see, this is the model. That whatever the current model you have seen just now, that is implemented first. So you take a machine and you implement it in a microcontroller. Then you capture in the neural network, because I need to find out this 1 by TR. Okay. Then these are the parameters are taken as the input of the neural network. ID, IQ, and any phase current, because I am considering it's a balanced load. So all the phase currents peak will be, RMS will be equal, and RPM. From there, a table is generated. You see, this is the table. This is the data set. Because this is a part of, it's a part of big data analytics. Lot of data you have to process. Lots of data, unbiased data. So these are the output from the model. By changing the value of RR, arbitrarily this has been taken, and this is your phase current, ID, IQ, and your RPM. Now using this value, a network has been trained. They have trained one network and they got the perfectly, they have got the output. You see, this is error. This is, they have plotted the error, but this is in the order of 10 to the power minus 3. That's one. It is perfectly matched. But if you want to estimate this by any analytical method, because you know the transfer function is so complex, so difficult, you cannot decouple one from other. It is very, very difficult. So in such nonlinear case, where so many things are dynamics are coupled together, this neural network and machine learning, it will be a best option to get the actual things, actual parameter. It's a kind of model. You see here, no model needed to estimate this, even though we are using some model, but to final estimate it, there is no transfer function. There is no predefined model. It's a kind of model free adaptive control. So now, instead of a static system, I need to implement a additional machine learning hardware through which instantaneously it will estimate the inverse rotor time constant, and that will be fed through the inverse rotor time constant wherever needed in the vector control. So this is the concept. So in microcontroller, to implement it, what is needed? You need to understand how to configure the ADC, because your current will be captured through ADC. Then how to configure the timers, how to implement a digital controller in microcontroller, how to produce the PWM, and how to count the quadrature pulse, because your RPM, it will be given as a quadrature pulse. How it is to be counted. These are the things only needed to implement it. Rest of the things, it is readily available in the market, IGBT, everything. Hope it will be available in your lab also. You can implement it, whatever I have told you. Another simple way is that this TMS, all the Texas controller, that is all the Texas controller, this kind of controller. You see, all that this is TMS 320F 280 28027F. It's a very powerful controller. This is a DSP controller. If you want to implement rapidly, means for rapid prototyping, you can use this controller, and you can implement that things in Simulink, and it will be, the code will be generated. That code, it will be imported to Code Composer Studio, and you burn it without knowing any bit settings of the register. Very quickly you can prove the concept. In my YouTube channel, there will be some video related to this. All are there, whatever I told. If somebody interested, you can watch it and you can implement. And in case of any help required further, you can contact me. So this was all about today's session. I think time also over. So if anybody have any question, you can ask, or we can terminate it.